Call us, email us, tweet, or Facebook us to join the conversation. We want to hear from you.
Welcome back to Context. We're taking a look at some of the biggest news headlines of 2011. In September, 3-year-old Keenan Hebert was abducted from his bed overnight. The suspect, a known sex offender with years of criminal activity, a person completely unknown to the family. Keenan was returned unharmed. I was invited into the Hebert home where Keenan's father, Paul, spoke to us about forgiving the alleged abductor.
He still has to be accountable for what he's done, and the Canadian Justice will give him what he deserves for that accountability section. But as Christians, we also have to find it in our heart to forgive him, or else would we not be just as much of a hypocrite as the next person. We ask God for our forgiveness for what we've done, and he asks us to do the same thing as well.
2011 will also be remembered as a tough year for the economy, especially with Europe's debt crisis.
It's gotten really, really messy. It's a threat because it threatens the global economy. If things go bad in Europe, it can spread to North America, elsewhere, and really puts us in danger of falling into another recession.
And why can Europe not do what America did and refinance itself?
Well, the U.S. hasn't really refinanced itself just yet. They've agreed on their debt ceiling for now. They still have lots of debt too. The immediate concern, though, is Europe. And one of the problems is that you're dealing with a European Union, and you've got many countries that are dealing with large levels of debt, and there's just no solution right now that's come to the table that's appropriate for everybody.
As the world continues to reel from one financial crisis to another, a picture of grassroots discontent is struggling for recognition. The Occupy movement says inequities and rampant corporate greed must end. Their message, we are the 99% and we're not going away. New York is where it all began. It quickly spread to cities across Canada and around the world.
My assessment is, first of all, we're seeing a very profound new social movement. It's very different than anything we've seen before. It has some elements the same, but it's very different than the 60s. It's not, the part that we read in the newspapers is that it's against inequality in society, which is true. But if you go on the site, what you find is they're building alternative communities based on love. So I would think Christians would think that this was a wonderful thing.
Okay, Jerry, what do you think about this?
Well, I just came from the Occupy site, and I'm a little high on secondhand dope. But other than that, I didn't see a whole lot going on. I mean, really, seriously. I think if that was a protest, I'd hate to see these people relax, because there was nothing going on there.
Yeah.
You know, for us, this is about idolatry. It's about things taking the place of God. Things that are useful or even needful, when they become too important, when they become all important, they become sources of worship for us. Meaning, Jesus said, you cannot serve God and mammon, God and money. He didn't say negotiate a deal. He said you can't serve God and mammon. And we've been trying to do that for a long time. And as my pastor said last Sunday, most of our of the American dream we buy with MasterCard. On Sunday we hear about the Christian dream just to round us out a bit. And that's the problem.
Gentlemen, England is the only place I've seen the big protest signs, what would Jesus do? And they've made an awful mess between the church and the occupiers. Mark, this is your church camp, Church of England. What's going on?
Well, I don't think anyone really knows. I think what's going on is the church and the occupiers are trying to deal with a very, very complicated issue that isn't resolved nicely and neatly with a whole bunch of 5-second sound bites and isn't going to go away in a hurry. And I think there's some tensions around that, and I think it's going to be a long while till we see it all resolved and working out. Okay,
Jim, you study social movements. Here you had a church invite these people in, invite occupiers in, then they got overwhelmed by it, then they asked them, it's time you have to go. What's going to get resolved in a social movement when it works like that, when they don't go?
It's hard to say exactly what the outcome of this will be, but the church has always been in tension between being too much in the world and not enough in the world and so on. So I think that they're right where they need to be. They're engaged in the issues. They're talking to people, they're getting people talking, and they're providing public space. There's less and less public space, actually, in our places now. It's become sort of corporatized.
It's news that shocked the sports world. A sex abuse scandal involving a former assistant football coach at Pennsylvania State University, Jerry Sandusky, charged with molesting 8 boys over 15 years. And since the news broke, more victims have come forward.
Once all the reaction has hit the news and so forth, they start questioning themselves about whether they did the right thing or not, and then they start wondering maybe it's their fault. So really just try to be as supportive as possible and tell them, and keep reinforcing that they did do the right thing.
When I listen and I do it God's way, when I look at it, 1998, January 19th, 1998 is my dry date. And I look at that all these years later, and through God's love, I found forgiveness.
I think the coach should have definitely been fired for his role in not ensuring that justice was seen to be done at Penn State.
Why such a confused reaction over his firing on the case? He wasn't the guilty person, but he had refused or neglected to report it.
Well, football in the United States and hockey in Canada really are the secular religions of both countries. They're both very much about what I call the theater of maleness, and both countries need to constantly watch this very violent theater of maleness going on. So when you take that away, when you really pull the wool, when you realize that you've had the wool pulled over your eyes all these years, and the rug gets pulled out too, people are in such disbelief. And I think the problem is with the disbelief. They cannot believe that their sacred sport called football could ever be part of something so terrible and ugly to do with children.
But at Penn State, coaches saw this shower room mess with 10-year-old boys. They reported it. Why didn't it get stopped much earlier?
I think it's an extremely complex situation in male locker rooms. First of all, I don't think that Penn State football team is any different from virtually every single other American football team where hazing occurs in those locker rooms. And I would bet you that the people who saw that, or who alleged to have seen the 10-year-old boy being raped in the shower, saw some pretty ugly stuff as well.
After the break, as we approach the 2nd anniversary of Haiti's devastating earthquake, we ask author Kent Annan about God's protection over the nation.
Are you planning to be in the Toronto area and want to watch a live taping of the show? Lorna invites you to be her guest. Email tickets at contextwithlorna.com or call 416-599-9777 extension 33 for more information.